This is CNN Breaking News.
I'm Randy Kay at CNN Center in New York. We'll go to our AC 360 special Extreme Challenges in a few minutes, but first we want to bring you breaking news. We're hearing reports that North Korea is preparing to fire more short-range missiles. Reports are that this next round of missile tests will be fired from its west coast. The North Korean government has issued a ban for ships in the sea off its South Pyongyang province. This word of more missile tests comes right on the heels of that country's second underground test of a nuclear device, an act the UN Security Council quickly and unanimously condemned today in an emergency session. Let's get more now from CNN correspondent Son Jie. She's live in Seoul, South Korea. Now, Jie, what can you tell me about these short-range missiles that North Korea is now threatening to launch?
Well, as of yet, Randy, we're not getting any confirmation from South Korea's defense ministry. But the South Korea's Yonhap news agency, a semi-government news agency, is reporting that there are signs that North Korea is getting ready to fire some short-range missiles off the west coast of the Korean peninsula. Now, this is the different coast from the east coast firing that they did yesterday on the same day that it also tested a nuclear device. Now, they're saying that they're not actually being clear about what the signs are, but there are signs, of course, that they've told ships to stay clear of the water. And if we take the last missile, the long-range missile firing that North Korea did in April, the signs then were that there were satellite imagery that told people outside of North Korea that there was a missile loaded onto a launch pad. So there may be signs along those lines that are also coming from North Korea, Randy.
And this would not be an underground test like we saw yesterday. These would be surface-to-air missiles. Why do you think North Korea is doing this?
It is difficult to say exactly why North Korea does a lot of these things, but we've talked to some analysts and they say it is almost a natural course for North Korea. North Korea wants to keep the spotlight on itself. North Korea, as yesterday, tested a nuclear device, showing the world that it has the nuclear capabilities. It also is now testing missiles. It is showing the world that not only is it a nuclear power, but it also has the delivery capabilities. And so it wants the world to know that North Korea is a power to be dealt with, and it has to be dealt with now, Randy.
All right, Son Jie, thank you for your insight live for us from South Korea. Let's take a step back now for a moment and give you the short version of how we got here. It was back in April of 2003 that North Korea declared it had nuclear weapons. Then in October 2006, North Korea successfully tested a nuclear weapon underground. A year later, February 2007, North Korea agreed to close its main nuclear reactor in exchange for an aid package worth $400 million. Later that year, in September, at the six-party talks, it signed an agreement to start disabling its nuclear facilities. But just 2 months later, talks broke down after North Korea refused to give inspectors access to suspected nuclear sites. Then, just last month, it launched a nuclear missile, which it said was a peaceful launch of a satellite. And just yesterday, as you know, the underground test blast there. And now, this warning that it is preparing to launch short-range missiles. So the question becomes, why? What is North Korea's motivation here? Joining me now on the phone, Mike Chenoy from the Pacific Council on International Policy. He's a former CNN correspondent and author of Meltdown, the inside story of the North Korean nuclear crisis. Mike, good to have you with us. First, North Korea conducts an underground nuclear test. Now comes word that it's going to test fire short-range missiles. What exactly is going on here?
I think there are a couple of important factors at work. The North Koreans were very frustrated last year at what they saw as the United States reneging on a deal that was reached at the time. The reason was the Bush administration's demand that the North agree to accept and to put into writing intrusive measures to verify the status of their nuclear program without what the North Koreans felt were corresponding concessions from Washington. So that left the diplomatic process deadlocked, and into this deadlock we had the Kim Jong-il, the North Korean leader, suffering a stroke, and that appears to have set in motion a very complicated succession process in North Korea. And so part of this is the North Koreans kind of circling the wagons while they sort out the transition to Kim Jong-il's son, and in this transition the North Korean military is playing a key role, and it's always been much more hard line than the diplomats. And so part of this is bolstering the standing of the regime, and part of it is projecting strength to the rest of the world so that the people, the North Koreans, feel other countries won't press them, and also if diplomacy ever gets started again, the North will be operating from a position of strength.